Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. So anyway, I'm glad I wasn't first up. One of the things I left the house with, some people left without their notes or whatever, I left without my spectacles. But every year for over 35 years now, there's been a group of people carrying U.S. mail from, or not necessarily from, depends upon what year, but between Sacramento, California, and St. Joseph, Missouri. And it's divided up into divisions by each state. The Utah division is a group of people. And
did you increase the postal rate this year? Not yet.
They don't get franked until the end of the ride, actually. So if they change rates during the ride. No, it's quite an interesting process. I had the privilege one year of being at the end of the ride and watched them, what they did with the mail after that. They have retired postal volunteers come in, put the stamps on them, cancel them, and then they go through regular mail to their destinations, literally all over the world.
It's actually the same rate as it was when it originally wrote back in the 1800s.
Couple of bucks.
Five, I think. It's
$5.
Yeah.
And that's for the commemorative letter. They have a personal letter you can do for $10. And you can write whatever you want on it. I've done that before as well. So, so it's a real process, okay, that these people do each year. This year, they're going from St. Joseph, Missouri to Sacramento, California. And it should enter the state of Utah, give or take a couple of hours. Don't set your watch by them. On June 22nd, around 8 p.m. in the evening. And then it should be departing the state at Ivapaw, which not too many people have heard of, on Sunday at 11:30. That's also a time zone change right there. So it gets confusing when you're talking back and forth across that timeline. But that's the projected this year, and we should have some moon. They try to set these rides up to take advantage of full moon because they leave in this year St. Joseph, Missouri, and they ride continuously until they get to Sacramento. There's no stops, no rest. They just...
It takes what, about 10 days?
Yes.
Something
Again,
like
that's the typical time that
Plus
originally
minus,
took. Was 10 days too. And so that's what they've got going on. Pretty neat to watch them come across. But why do they ask for our help? Well, between Evanston and Salt Lake City, there is cell phone service, yes, if something should come up, but it's spotty, particularly as you're going into the canyons. Particularly at the Wyoming-Utah border. The coverage is very spotty there because it's not near the interstate or Evanston, the urban area. So, you know, it's spotty. From Fairfield in the West Desert, though, there is no cell phone service. You talk about Antelope Island being kind of out in the middle of nowhere. You can't even see anything out there on the West Desert in terms of help. You get stuck out there and you're stuck and very long ways from anything. So we're there for the horse and rider safety. Last year, and it's not the first time it's happened, but it was kind of spectacular on this one. I think it was a 22-year-old horse dropped dead just at the end of its run. The horse was trained for this run and always enjoyed it. In fact, the rider said, you know, he was ready to go. But as he got going along, kind of got slower and slower and then dropped dead. We've had situations in our own division, particularly going up East Canyon. There, it's slippery there with the pavement, horse hooves, etc. We've had a rider fall off, break a leg on that. So there's real reason for horse and rider safety. Also, we help coordinate the entourage. We have, you know, bunches and bunches of people that are part of this. I'm trying to remember the number now. I've forgotten the number. But anyway, it takes a lot of riders to carry the mail across the state. And so in the end, we're their safety net. If something goes wrong, there's been vehicle problems out there, even among our own communicators. Last year, the biggie out there on the West Desert is one of the ride captains trying to get to Ivapaw to start the Utah leg of the ride. Ended up changing 3 flat tires. First one, no problem. Second one, okay, he's carrying a spare of a spare. Third one really put him in a pickle. And and of course, at that point, he didn't have a safety net because nobody was signed. We hadn't even started the ride yet. And so what, what advantage is it to us? What skill sets do we bring into play that, that makes this worthwhile doing? Well, the planning of it. You are running over an extended period of time, requiring a lot of coordination among different pieces, including the surge agency. You're not dealing with just one person in a surge agency. You're dealing with a minimum of 3. And so there's planning before the event and planning during the event that takes place. ECC operations gives you that experience of sitting there in the ECC. Now, we often say, it's kind of a ho-hum job there. I don't want to discourage anybody from volunteering. We need the volunteers. It doesn't work without you people. But it's a low-key operation, unless something goes bad. Otherwise, you're sitting there monitoring the radio, checking with the field people from time to time, make sure everything's working and operational.
Trying to stay away from
Yes.
Who always the old story about hours and hours of boredom, punctuated by seconds of stark terror?
Absolutely. And so you may feel like you're kind of out there by yourself, but you're the linchpin to the whole operation in the communications center.
Is that Simpson Springs, that last?
Yes, it was. Field operations is another skill set that we bring in, because you're out there making sure beforehand that your equipment's going to work in the environment that you're going to be in. And this re-ride takes place always in June, preferably during the full moon at some point during those 10 days. And so that means then that you've got temperature to deal with. One year I went out to the West Desert in a white truck and came back with a brown one. It was pretty nasty weather out there, but I'd never seen the West Desert so beautiful that year. Exquisite. And so you've got field operations working out there. The extended coverage. We're not talking about a 1 or 2 mile parade route or across the county or something like that. We're going clear across the whole state, providing communication from border to border. And in fact, with the Nevada people, we're communicating with the Nevada people as well. Wyoming has not yet set up radio communications, so we haven't done anything that direction. But the Nevada people, we talk to each other during around the time that we're going to exchange the mail with it. So it's dark of night or bright day. Frequency agility. you're not on just a frequency simplex or a frequency repeater. You're having to adjust as you go along with the riders. And you can see here that the yellow marks up there are the different repeaters that we have available. And we've got it set up, and it's pretty cookie cutter now because of so many years of doing it. But we basically have our primary repeater, secondary repeater, and even a tertiary repeater. So in the communication center, ideally we would have at least 2 radios set up listening to primary and secondary frequencies. One of the nice things about the West Desert, they have an excellent coordinated repeaters out there. And from the latent ECC that we've been using lately, we have access to that whole West Desert system through 1 or 2 repeaters on there. So it works out really well for us. Unlike Nevada, we do have the advantage that we can run VHF repeater across the whole state. Nevada has to go with HF in many spots. They'll use the VHF for some local coordination, and then they'll set up an HF station listening on the VHF in order to get back to Carson City with the information that's needed. So frequency agility. You're not hearing anybody. It's time to figure out, okay, what's the next frequency here and what's going on. Sometimes we have trouble with a repeater. And then long range coverage. Again, we're working clear across the whole state. The command center and the field operator will be miles and miles and miles and miles apart. And so with a lot of coverage, you need equipment that can handle it. This is not an HT operation. You do need mobiles that will put out the power and antenna setups to get that power going. Equipment readiness also. I'll say it again. You know, once you're out there, you're on your own. You can't run down the Radio Shack for a connector. So you need to make sure everything's in readiness. And it's not just radio equipment. You also have to make sure readiness for your vehicles. As I said, the one ride captain, 3 flat tires before he even got to the rewrite as he crossed the West Desert. And water. We've had a generator go out on, or alternator, go out on one vehicle. I personally experienced a dead battery at Simpson Springs. And I'm finding out the way they build the batteries nowadays, you no longer get a warning. Used to, you know, okay, it's hard starting, you know, charge it up, okay. No, they're down. And that's what happened to me. So I had to have a jump in order, obviously I didn't turn my vehicle off from then on. Worked out just fine. But these are sort of things, equipment readiness is another skill set that's involved with this. Now the great thing about this is you meet the nicest people. It's just, these horse riders, they're very happy that we're there providing that safety net for them. And they're just a great group of down-to-earth people. I wouldn't say that they're cowboys, some of them aren't. But they really enjoy the ride. In fact, the gentleman in the black hat just above the P on Spirit there, he's been doing this 35 years now. He got his 35-year patch this year. So he's really been involved for sure. And I'm going to start up something else here as I conclude.
Where's my Dramamine?
Eat a ginger snap. Anyway, this is obviously the rider's view of a segment of the ride. I got interested in amateur radio clear back when I was in junior high school, but I didn't get my license. We moved around too much for me to get a mentor. Then I got married, so on and so forth. Then I got divorced. But when I found out that I could get my radio license and hook up a computer to a radio, I bit the bullet and I did what I needed to do to make it happen. And so that was just wonderful. The other thing too that I do with radio is a lot of interest. When I came back from working overseas, I opted to settle in the Salt Lake area. And that was also the time when they had they were doing those high altitude balloon launches. And I really, really enjoyed that, and the balloon chasing. It's unfortunate the support for that has left the state all these years, but that's another activity that I certainly have enjoyed. I will have to give credit to my wife on the next point, and that is this emergency communication. I've always been interested in it, but I never got as involved as I did until she got her license, and that was her primary interest. And so that's really put me into that mode of being as involved as I am now. All of the digital modes, I have had a chance to play with many of the newer ones coming out. And so this is kind of a hobby that a little bit of something for everyone. The building of equipment, I wish I was more adept at it, but I've been able to do a little bit, and I enjoy it tremendously. The antennas that I built, yes.
Do you run it along with the horses, or is it stationary out there?
We've worked it many different ways. The preference is to have two field operators. One following the mochila, which is what carries the mail. Because if something goes wrong, that's typically when. And the second one, ideally, is coming up on the rear to make sure everybody gets off. Because they don't just change the mail and then everybody goes on. A group of people have to stay back in order to cool their horses down, desaddle them if they need to, or whatever fussing that is required to take care of the animal, get them trailered up and get them moving. Takes an amount of time. And so ideally, I really would prefer two people out there, one following the mochila and the other one bringing up the rear end to make sure everybody gets off the desert floor. Really important out there. And the one following the mochila, as in so many other things, you basically do what the right captain asks you. Some of them will, for various reasons, have you do something different. But in terms of a set station, not as useful for us, because we have such great computer coverage out there on the West Desert. We don't need a stationary station. And this is a moving activity. Chuck?
No, I was just going to say, though, in my case, if I participate, I like to go out to a riverbed station and camp. Not because it's necessarily needed for the ride, although it can be useful. It's just another way for me to exercise, being completely self-contained out in the boondocks someplace.
Yes. Yeah. And, so, that riverbed area that he's talking about has a little bit of a hole through there. Not their riverbed, but in the approaches to it, because you're going through some mountainous area before you drop into that particular valley. So it has had a little bit of use. Any other questions?
Just
Yes.
a comment, you never know what you're gonna get. One year we're sitting at net control and we get the field operator called in and problem was a news helicopter or some sort of helicopter was getting too low, too close, and was spooking the horse and was having some real problems. And so they wanted us to contact the FAA to get this helicopter out of there or at a safer distance away from the horse. And you know, you never know what you're going to be asked to help out with.
Very true. I forgot about that incident.
Yeah.
Have you had incidents with wild animals? There are plenty of those around.
They've never been a problem to us, but I tell you, where the deer and the antelope play, that's the West Desert. It's wonderful.
Rattlesnakes and the rabbit.
There's concern, and this is again part of the safety net. On the east end of the state, and I didn't talk so much about that, but they have to, in one leg of that ride, be right on Interstate 80. There's no side roads or anything. They don't have any choice but to go through on Interstate 80. Otherwise, they try and do the frontage roads. That's through most of it. Going through the canyon, up and over, very narrow, very windy. And so, you know, there's some gotchas there. Any others? Yeah.
Isn't this over field day this year?
As a matter of fact, yes.
So there's plenty of opportunity to volunteer for this.
You know, this concerns you and whatnot. I didn't see the people doing the field day this year. I was going to ask them. I've got to do a test, but I'm hoping that we can set up the command center at the field day station since you're doing it at the Legacy Center.
We are.
We're doing it at the fairgrounds this year.
Sucks. Why? That makes me very unhappy.
When I heard that, then I figured, well, maybe we can handle it that way. I haven't had a chance to talk with the people yet to clear it, but that's the idea. I didn't bring my truck today because of the weather, but I need to go out there and make sure I can hit the key repeaters. And if I can, then I want to ask if we can just set up a command center along with it. It's just a matter of getting a couple of the VHF radios tuned to repeaters that we use and just keeping your ear open.
Or we could cross-band that to the Layton ECC.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Okay. Whatever it takes to work out, but that's, when I heard that it was going to be changed from Monte Cristo to the fairgrounds, I thought, well, that takes a load off of me because I was afraid I was going to lose too many people to the field day. But biggest part of the ride that we're concerned with is at night. A couple of years ago, I stopped providing service to them from This Is the Place Monument to Fairfield, because that stretch is not a black hole for cell phones or any kind of help that you need. So in talking with them, they understood, and we decided not to cover that segment. So that's a block of time we don't have to worry about. But on either end is where we're really needed. Looks like that's all. Thank you for your attention.